All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Obviously, excited to be 1-0 this week. It was a good win versus North Alabama team. Those game one things that we talk about come about, right? Being able to own the football, we were able to do that successfully. Getting 3 takeaways on defense was obviously huge. Anytime you get a shutout in college football, it means a ton, right? But we left that game with a lot to be desired. And I think even our defense would sit there and say there's a ton of things that could be fixed. Special teams and offense, and it starts with me. I look back as a head coach. I said, okay, these are the things I need to improve upon, and I challenged everybody in the entire program to sit there and say, okay, how can we be better? And what I appreciate about this group, regardless of our 40-point win, is they know we got to be better. Every week is going to present new challenges, and how do we go about doing that is going to be huge as we progress forward. So excited to see what we're capable of doing, but a lot of good things came from that game. And, we talk about just continue to focus on moving forward. I do want to thank again the crowd like I did post-game. I thought the student section was phenomenal. I mean, our students showed up and showed out, and they were great. And like I said in our post-game, what a great day to represent the 901, right, with the logo on the side of the helmets and this great city that we had the opportunity to go out there and put on a showcase for in our reconstructed stadium as it continues to be built. Like I talked about at Joe's promise of the things to come in this future. But now, right, we turned the page like we did yesterday after we watched the film and said, okay, now great focus on a Troy team. All right, you're talking about a team that over the last 2 years has won 23 games, which ties them for 4th in the country with most wins. Since 2016, they have 191 takeaways. All right, well, puts them tied for 1st in the country with Clemson. This is also a team that had over 300 yards of offense last game, over 100 rushing yards. So we're going to get them everything they have. You talk to them and you hear about some of the stuff that this is their Super Bowl, so we got to be prepared. We got our blinders on. We're really focused on improving ourselves and knowing that we got a tough opponent coming to the Liberty Bowl. But I can't wait to see our fans pack it. It's going to be early, 11 a.m. game. We need the fans to show up and show out early at 8:30 at the title walk. Excited to see what this week brings us in preparation.
Ryan, after looking at the film, what specifically that you may not have caught in real time that you want improved on both sides?
Yeah, I think, the communication part, we talked about all the unique things that North Alabama was going to throw at us from an offensive standpoint. And I think everybody watching that game saw, right, from muddles to 2 quarterbacks to wildcats, the number of things they showed. But that's one of those things we're going to continue to emphasize on defense because they're going to see a variety of things throughout the year. And then, okay, how are there ways that we can improve the iPads, right, the coach-to-player communication? But I think those are the things we're going to continue to harp on. Offensively, I just think we sing different things, right? We're going to see a variety of different defenses. I wish we could sit here and say, hey, what we see on film is exactly what we're going to see week in and week out. That's not necessarily the case. The communication, right? Anytime you get 5 new offensive linemen playing together, we got to make sure that continues to improve. I think that will help the run game. Also help out in pass protection, right? Making sure our guys need to be where they need to be, keep our quarterback upright. And then, we talked about the obvious ones were the special teams miscues and our missed kicks, both that went wide left, things that could be improved upon, but those were pretty obvious. But as we go through, right, it wasn't necessarily a clean game, right, altogether. There's a lot of things that obviously occurred. We even talk about, okay, hey, at the holiday and pregame meal, whether things that we can improve upon the stretch, all those things that go into game 1 preparations as a staff we looked at and said, okay, how can we improve going into game 2?
Right, is there an update on Sutton's vet?
Yeah, so obviously with it being Labor Day, weren't able to get him into doctor. We'll get him an MRI tomorrow. Sutton's a phenomenal young man. You guys know that he's a guy that was highly recruited out of high school and stayed committed to us. He was actually our first commit that year and stayed committed to us throughout the challenges and the things that occur in the recruiting process. He's worked his tail off. He's only a true junior. So we're keeping our fingers crossed in him and our prayers, but we don't have a full prognosis yet until he gets a chance to get an MRI.
He could be redshirted though, right? And because he's never had one and still have 2 years?
Yeah, I'm not thinking about that right now, but yes, that is certainly a possibility, whether it's a medical or a regular redshirt. Those are all things that are possibilities, but we're keeping Sutton in our thoughts and prayers because he's a young man that, he works his tail off. He does right in the classroom, in the community, on the field, and so truly a remarkable young man that we have high expectations for and high hopes for, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed that everything turns out okay.
If Sutton is out, does Greg kind of become the next number 2 to kind of go in there and get all of those reps?
Well, I think Mario Anderson proved that he's also capable, and then Greg it showed that he does some really nice things. In fact, I had a lot of people hit me up and talked about, wow, you never even mentioned him much. So, Mario and Greg, and then look, Brandon Thomas. We still got great faith in him. And then at the end, we got to see, I think, the 17-year-old Makari Bodiford get some carries. So that's what, where we feel comfortable with a lot of the positions. I talked about to you guys about depth within our program, and at running back, we certainly feel like we've got a solid group that are capable of handling the duties no matter how it unfolds.
Coach, talk to me about Makari Bodiford. What have you seen from him through camp and just as a recruit? What made you want to bring him in?
Yeah, look, it's same high school as Sutton, so the Walton school out there in Atlanta area, and so obviously we knew what Sutton came from, and their high school coach was actually a Memphian, and so the more of those guys we can bring back this way. But Makari's a young man, obviously a bigger running back, close to 220 pounds as a true freshman, runs the ball really well. Got to continue to work on pad level, right? But he was able to join us in January, so he has a good grasp of our offense. But, I go back to Sutton's true freshman year. Sutton was really the only true freshman that played that season. And you guys kind of go back and look at it, and, every year we almost have like that one or two, right? Obviously Greg Rubin and Seth Hennigan. And then you look, and Sutton Smith was really the only true freshman that doesn't have that red shirt by his name. And so as we continue to progress, I think Makari's a guy that's got a bright future here. We'll see how much he's going to be used in the mix now if we need to. But very, very pleased with his growth so far.
Coach, what do you see from?
Just when you went back and watched it, the run game kind of as a whole offensive line. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, the run game wasn't where it needs to be, and like I said, that always starts with me. I've got to find better ways to put us in the right position with X's and O's. The offensive line did some good things, but not good enough, and they'll be the first to say, hey, we got to make sure communications on tags are correct, where we're going, how we're working, techniques. We did some unsound stuff that's like, wait, we didn't even do that on a Tuesday practice. Why is that showing up on a Saturday on game day? So some of those things, the first game stuff you see at offensive line, and plus a group of 5 guys that hadn't really played together. No, they practiced together, scrimmaged together, but some positive things, right? I think we saw some flashes of things that they're able to do. And I always say this with the run game. It certainly starts up front, but then did the backs hit the right path, the right track, right? Did the quarterback put us in the right check? Hey, we were supposed to check to this versus this look. Did the tight ends do their job? Did the wide receivers handle themselves on perimeter blocking? And all those things, are accumulation of a subpar run game that needs to improve, and we'll make sure it does.
Coach, what do you see from Troy's offense, and what do you expect the biggest matchup within that game to be?
Yeah, look, Troy plays really, really hard. You just put on the film, and I told our staff, I was able to buzz through it Sunday morning. I was like, man, this team plays really, really hard, okay? And, their offense is, I think their head coach, Gerard Parker, who was the offense coordinator at Notre Dame, he wants to run the ball down your throat if he can, all right? If he can line up in big personnel and try to smash you, kind of like what they did at Notre Dame, and then take shots down the field, that's what they're going to try to do. And they're certainly capable. I mean, they've got a lot of talented guys. They've done a nice job. You don't win 23 games over a 2-year period and do what they've done, back-to-back conference championships, without having some playmakers. And they do. They got some players all throughout the entire offense. Their quarterback's playing at a high level. So our defense is going to have to step up big. And I've got great faith in our defense and our coaching staff to put our guys in the right position, but we got to be able to play fast, right? And we talked about last week with what North Alabama, the problems and challenges it presented, Greg, is, with all the different formations, all the different things, different varieties of tempo. Well, not only do we have to continue to be great with our eyes and our communication, but we got to be able to play faster. And I think it starts with a great preparation. I told our guys this is the most important game of the season. Why? Because it's the next one, but it also is. And we know there's going to be some challenges there. And then the matchups, right? How do we continue to do things? What are they going to do, right? They're not going to sit there and say, okay, hey, teams are playing us in unique ways. So what formations are they going to give us? What plays? They got to try to take shots, or they got to do some play action. Look, they're sitting here game planning as well. Excited to see what they present Saturday morning, but we got a long ways to go before then.
Right. Taj was off the roster, back on the roster. What happened there, and what's his status?
Yeah. So you guys know, and I always try to, without sounding funny, so you guys know training camp you're allowed 120 guys, which that rule was, a blanket waiver was passed through the NCAA. Well, he wasn't on that 120 at one point, as you know. But then when school started, the NCAA allows you, based off your Title IX number, to add. So we added guys like Taj Royale back on the roster, Cameron Upshaw. No one asked me a single question about Cam Upshaw. You asked a lot of questions about a lot of other guys, but we added a new tight end. We added a new wide receiver. We're adding another running back. Guys, that's the way it goes. I mean, we are able to add some players until we get to our number that we're allowed to. And so we're going to continue, right? I mean, that's roster management at its finest. But we do expect him to dress this week and be a part of this program. But just with like a lot of things, there's things that we discuss internally. It's been funny. There's like multitude of guys that weren't dressed for games last year. Nobody asked me a single question about them. So, look, I also say this, whatever's out there sometimes isn't always the truth. I always love this when we get unanimous sources. But the best sources just come ask me. But pleased with where he's at in his growth, and look, if he can contribute this season, obviously we've got high expectations for him as well. Just like everybody, we continue to add to this roster.
When you look at
how would you assess their ability to pressure the quarterback on Saturday?
Our defense?
Yeah, your defense.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I kind of gave credit to the other guys. I thought they did a nice job, right? We're lined up in the base out of a three-man front, and I always say this, and I told Coach Hankins, like, I don't want to be able to the team that has to bring 5 every time just to get quarterback pressure. And I think the movement of different guys, I thought you saw as the game went on. I think one of those things that hey, what are they running here? Is it going to be a reverse? Is it 2 quarterback? And that can kind of freeze you on your feet. But I think once we were able to pin our ears back, you got to see guys like William Whitlow. You got to see different guys coming off the edge. Really affect the quarterback. So, look, I don't know exactly how many TFLs we had or exactly how many sacks, but I thought they did a nice job, and we're going to continue to challenge them. And I've said it all along, one of the deals is we've got to improve up front, because if we're playing well up front and getting pressure on the quarterback, it's easier for the linebackers to make plays and certainly easier for those guys in the back end to cover. So we got to find ways, but I also want to be able to line up, whether it's a 3-down front or 4-down front, and be able to get pressure to the quarterback without having to blitz and pressure. But I thought they did a nice job on Saturday, but it's got to continue to improve.
specifically against Troy defensively, where do you have to be better than you were last week?
Troy's defense or our defense?
Your defense against Troy.
No, they got to step up. I mean, look, it's a totally different animal, right? I mean, if they want to line up and 13 personnel and try to run it down us, we've got to be able to make clean tackles. We did a nice job tackling. I really was. You know, everybody says game one, what was those things? I was pleased with our tackling, but a lot to clean up. I told our staff, right, too many shoestring tackles. We got to get there. We got to play with our eyes a little bit better, so we're able to wrap and roll and continue the clasp technique that we teach here. But we've just got to be fundamentally sound, because they've got 3 running backs that can really roll at Troy, and they're going to pride themselves at running the football. So we got to step up with that. And then again, different skill sets at different guys that are capable of doing things. Like I said, their quarterback's playing efficient, and it's a team that's won in the past that's going to come in here with zero concerns other than they think they're the top G5 team in the country, and we're going to have to prove otherwise. And it's going to take a challenge, but our defense has to continue. They know it. Shutout and all that stuff, great job. Kudos. That's a wonderful thing. Time to move on to the next deal. And our defense understands, look, I told them all along, I don't like hearing about, Memphis is an offensive team. No, BS. We're going to be a complete team, and our defense, I don't care if our defense carries us all season. That'd be a wonderful thing. But I also told them if they continue to shut out teams, we'll be just fine.
A week under your belt, what did you work out with the helmet communications offensively and defensively? Yeah,
right. It was pretty clean, right? There were some times we'd ask Seth, hey, I couldn't hear out there. It wasn't due to crowd noise. It was just because of a variety of things. And I actually made the joke at the groundbreaking, right, that like the noises you hear during a game, right? Crowd noise. Well, the train went by. I actually did hear the train go by one time during the game. I was like, and then a FedEx plane, which is a beautiful sight, right, to see that FedEx plane flying over there. But it's like, that's deafening. It's like, you're like, okay, well, then you see Seth doing that. And then defensively, right, at one point, you guys would see like Chandler Martin actually carried the green dot, as we'll call it, on the helmet. And then he came out, and then Donovan Mathena went in. And I was like, okay, we got to make sure. And there's actually, I think a couple teams got caught with 2 green dots on the field. And there's obviously certain special teams units, but our coaches did a great job of that, and I think it works well. You also saw, I don't know if you guys noticed, North Alabama, and I don't care if our opponents hear this, North Alabama was waiting until about 15 seconds to signal or to call in their final play or signal it in, right? because they knew our helmet communication would go off. But that's a great thing about having intelligent guys that are calling the defense, not only signaling in, but then our players that put us in the right formations with checks and all those things. But it was pretty clean. It's unique. There's going to be teams I'm intrigued to see right throughout college football how they're using it in different variety of things. Like I always said, I wish it was a year later, because when you have a quarterback like Seth Hennigan, like, he doesn't need it. He'd rather have music playing his ear than us telling, hey, why don't you do this and that? But look, it's one of those things, just like adjusting to 18 iPads, and surfaces. I'm sitting there trying to remember, okay, on this play, what did he do? I'm like, oh, hey, you idiot, you can go look at the exact thing. You don't have to memorize exactly what happened on every play, nor do you need to ask the player. You can just pull it up and show. So
they're going to be part of the kind of a gamemanship and chess match between coaches and coordinators, trying to figure out, when do we shut things off, when do we send things in?
Absolutely. I think that's part of it, right? I think people are going to sit there and say, okay, does it slow? I don't know. And then people asked, did it slow the game down? We had 61 exact plays on offense, 61 exact plays on defense, not including like punt safe and stuff like that. And is that a lower number? I don't know. But, a lot can be indicative of, running the football, the score. Obviously, I think only 5 plays were less than the year before with, running the clock when it go out of bounds prior to 2 minutes. Just some unique things that go with that. And it was also, I don't know if you guys noticed, okay, so we had a media timeout with 2:36 in the fourth quarter. Then we had the 2-minute warning, which was another 3-minute and 30-second timeout. And then another media timeout with like 18 seconds left in the game. And I was just like, holy cow. But guess what? Hey, I'm all supportive of that as long as it pays the bills. But there's a lot of things that are adjustments and coming in college football, and we got to continue to do a great job with it.
So you have multiple helmets outfitted with the receiver and multiple guys, so you can just switch the green dot around?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so, what you can't, Jarvis, it's what they call a delay of game penalty, a 5-yard penalty if caught with 2 green dots on what they're calling it on the field at the same time. Now, they say for free kick plays you're allowed to, but I'm sure there's some teams that were using them for special teams, which would be kind of unique. As the guys running down the field on kickoff, can you be telling them, hey, but duck and cover, here we go. Watch those. I guess we didn't get that advanced. Maybe we got to be better as a staff to get that done. But yeah, so there are multiple helmets, right? And also, if you ever went out there, a team like North Alabama went out there with 2 quarterbacks. Well, I'm sure they had to make sure that teams are starting to do some of those things. But give all the credit in the world to Mark Hohorst. I think our equipment manager. You think about, like, I tell our staff all the time, like, Mark Hohorst is the best of the best. They need to build a statue of him here. Not only is he work tireless hours and loves this program as much as anybody, but think about the amount of stuff that his job's changed, right? Like, it's not like we just have one blue uniform and one white one, right? We got all these different uniforms with all these different logos, all these stripes. Oh, and by the way, now there's going to be 18 sideline tablets, right? There's going to be coach-to-player communication. Oh, by the way, the coaches like to play music during practice, which weren't even thought of 10 years ago. All these extra things that are going on that occur that he's got to do a great job with, and him and his staff do a remarkable job. But yes, Jarvis, long-winded answer, there are multiple helmets, and they've got to take care of that as well.
Have you talked with Seth about how that worked for him, the communication the first game?
Yeah, we talked about it. We actually talked coming off to the sideline. Hey, what are some of the things that you heard, and something that was it good, too much, was it enough? And he, he's pretty melancholy, as you guys know, pretty chill with that stuff. But he was comfortable with it. It didn't think it was too much. That's the biggest thing is when you have a veteran quarterback, right? And then there's also that worry if you ever put in a younger quarterback, right? Did I give him too much, right? Because all of a sudden, okay, hey, watch the safety. He's coming. Oh wait, no, check to here. Oh wait, Then all of a sudden you're paralysis by analysis. But Seth seemed pretty comfortable with it. And again, it's going to be a game-by-game based off of environment, but also what we're going to see by the defenses.
It wasn't the first game and you were up by that margin. Would you have pulled starters at some point earlier in the second half?
Well, you never feel comfortable as a head football coach. It sounds good, right? Well, why didn't you just pull them? Because but we've also seen blown leads occur. I'll point back to the Houston game a couple of years ago where we, what if we pulled starters in? But no, there's no lead where you feel really comfortable. I was sick to my stomach up until the last play of the game. And that's just the nature of college football. But we're also was facing a team that ran a double reverse pass down 40 points, and so and they were bringing the house and blitzing. So we had to make sure it was the right situation. We did sub guys, I thought, to the best of our ability. Could we maybe done it one series earlier? Reality, what happened was when the offense punted the ball away, okay, or scored, I can't remember, it was like 8:36 left in the game. And at that point on the head side, I said, okay, hey, if the defense holds them, let's get those other guys in. And that's kind of what happened, obviously. And then the drop punt where they got the first, so there's a lot of things that went into this. We're like, man, why didn't you get them in earlier? But I do think the most any one of our guys played, I think, was, like I said, 61 plays plus a handful of snaps, and that was the O-line on field goal. And you think about this, we probably get more plays done in a Tuesday practice. So you need them, obviously, to come in and go through and get in game shape and play the fourth quarter as well.
After you watch the video, are you still annoyed with your field goal kicker?
Yeah, look, Caden's a great kicker. We got great faith in what he's able to do. And like I said, very rarely do I ever throw a player under the bus. It's always my job. Like, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to read how to kick for dummies, and it's my job to teach them how to kick better. But there is some frustration when you miss an extra point and you miss a field goal. But he's certainly capable. We've got great faith in him. He's our kicker. I take a deep breath and say, okay, hey, Caden, what do we got to do? Because he's going to win some games for us. And you guys are going to say, hey, how do you feel about your kick? I'm going to say, I love him. He's the absolute best. He got his name tattooed here on the left arm, and we're good to go. But no, look, got great faith in him. It was just one of those days. They always say kicking is like golfing, right? Like you're going to hit some bad shots here or there, and in my case, a ton of them. But we got great faith in Caden, and he's going to do a remarkable job the rest of the season for us.
Coach, you brought up blitzing. They were blitzing a lot, especially off the left edge. Their edge was coming in every time. You lose Sutton, and I'm not sure where Sutton falls in as far as blocking. Where are you with the running backs that you have now that are healthy and their ability to block? Because there was a lot of times they were pushing right into Hennigan before he delivered.
Yeah, great point, Greg. I did. That was so what I do is post game. Obviously, I watch it, and then Sunday morning I go through a list of notes, and that was one of the things I think that I told Coach Marks, like our running back pass protection. They're certainly willing, right? There's a difference between willing and not being able to, right? If they're not able to, that's our job to teach them how. All right, and so I said, okay, if one guy's not doing it, that's one guy. But if like you said, a handful of them weren't doing exactly like we're capable of, that's our job to teach them, to coach them to do it. But they're certainly willing, because if they're not willing and they're scared to pass protect, they won't be a part of this program, nor will you see them in the game, especially on third down. So I think it's an area for improvement, for sure. But I've got great faith. We've got great faith that we'll be able to get that fixed.
Coach, I know you spent 9-on-1 day yesterday, probably watching film from yesterday from the game this weekend. But I want to know, what's your favorite 9-on-1 Memphis meal? My
favorite 9-on-1 Memphis meal, as you know, I indulge in most meals. All right. But man, there's so many great places now. I also can't get myself in trouble with who's a sponsorship and all that stuff, because that's all it knows. No, we're good. But I partake in. There's so many Memphis favorites. I mean, I've been very, very fortunate. I've put down probably about every restaurant here. And what's good for me, well, not good for me, is that most of the meals up in our cafeteria are buffet styles. And I get as much of the buffet as I can into a styrofoam box, so much so that usually it snaps. And I try to take it up to the office to watch film. So, I try to eat like I'm a 330-pound, 15-year-old offensive lineman. But no, there's so many great places. But like I said, I mean, I love the fact that we're a city that celebrates a day, right, based off of 9/01 and September 1st, and there's just so many. You guys know how much I love the city and certainly the food.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.